Hey guys, what's up? Terry here from Switzerville Sound Retreat, and I want to talk to you guys today about whether or not you should go to a big studio or a small project studio such as this, or record by yourself. Now, let's start with a big studio. These are very captivating places with often records on the wall, awards, maybe plastered on some shelves. There's history there of great records being made, and so it's natural that you want to connect yourself with that energy. I think it's an experience that every band or artist should do at least once. It doesn't really work for sustainability in 2024. However, I think it's something that should be experienced. Typically, there's grandiose console. There's a bit more of that sort of engineer room, and you got to kind of bring in your own producer, which was likely to happen more historically. Whereas, say coming to a place like Switzerville Sound Retreat and many other sort of home-based studios, you're kind of getting the whole package. You're getting somebody who has, purchased enough equipment to do the recording, but typically in the name of being able to, say, exercise their production chops, or, or simply be a straight engineer, but from the comfort of home without the high price tag of certain studios. I won't name anything particularly. We all know who they are in our respective cities. So again, big studio, great experience. Does it sound better? Well, technically, yes. Like, the buildings are built with a room inside of a room construction. Typically, there's massive ceilings. There's great treatment, room treatment itself, be it sound absorption and just nice concoctions of stone and or wood. Interesting angles that were brought into the construction of the studio. So there is definitely a sonic advantage for source tracks. Now, does that help you make your music better? I would say no, not at all. And I would also say that there's a lot you can do with homebrew audio now that couldn't even be done when I started in 2009. There's a lot of tricks that have now been brought into the spectrum here. There, when the early native systems were coming out, and a semi-pro home studio equipment package was becoming more widely available. I would say that a lot of people were encountering some new things that they weren't used to. They were encountering weird acoustic issues and buzzes and rattles and just lots of types of things that these pro studios had taken care of in the setup and construction phase. So I would say now that there's been, over a decade of this, there's been so many cool tricks to get big drum sounds out of a small room, and tons, and let's not leave out the rise of drum sampling. Not that that wasn't a thing. This goes back to as far as the 70s, but we've all heard of plugins like Slate Trigger and Drum Magog and Sound Replacer. This became such a crucial weapon for augmenting drums, that where typically you would be recording in a substandard environment and you'd be compressing those to get the snap or get the punch and all those things out of the drums, but you'd also be sort of bringing up the bad qualities of the room and trying to sort of EQ and fight that. So the sample augmentation, I like to say augmentation. They call it a replacer because technically it is. Technically the software is grabbing a transient and it's putting another sound on top of that trigger of your choosing. And these get into multi-sample layer sort of packages, which basically, based on what's coming in, it will try to pick a sample that is velocity matched. So, but really I like to call it augmentation because anytime you just use the samples, it sounds really bad. So, and even it can kind of sound not the best if it's they're too high in the mix. Sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes you really want a synthetic sound, and that they're perfect for that. But sometimes you just want a more powerful version of the kit you recorded. And again, this has been a game changer in our world of home recording studios. It's allowed us to have competitive mixes and product. So there's been that. There's been just more sort of study of sort of how small rooms are affecting your sound and different ways of sort of, again, finding the newer kits have come on the market to measure your room from a consumer level, something that probably cost a lot of money back in the 80s and 90s, but now like systems like Arc, and there's a few others that read your room with a set of really neutral microphones, and they tell you where there are dips and peaks in certain frequencies. So if you have a dip in 50 hertz, you're likely to overcompensate for that, and you get out to your car and it's way too boomy. So there's been tons of just great experiences and trial and error, and now I believe we're in a place where honestly 100% competitive product can be done from a studio like this. I think a lot of artists might assume going into a large studio would just equal the sound of their favorite record that was recorded there. That's not the case. There's so many things that go in behind that. There's hours of just working out the best ideas, the best compositions, finding the best tones. All the things I described actually are time-based. So this is where I think that the best approach for 2024, no matter what you're doing, is to really get your group or yourself equipped enough to do proper pre-production from your jam space, from your house, from your home. Because again, so many of the things that I spoke of there were that some of your favorite bands had days to work out great parts because they had bigger budgets and there was an energy and a vibe. And And I guess that's what we bump up against, because our home and our home studio, there's the distractions of home, and there's everything that your life is, good or bad, it's there for you at home. So I understand how it can be hard to um, get in that headspace. So I think this is what a lot of artists crave, is they crave a headspace. They crave that energetic shift, and so they're going to want to pay for that. But what often happens is they realize how fast the time goes, and in the moment of like capturing a beautiful tone in a great studio, realizing, damn, I don't have much time, and I didn't work this part out quite well enough. So there's kind of a balancing act there. And so again, I feel like the more you can find yourself a great zen area at your house or in your jam space to really work these parts out. And what I've been doing with bands is getting them in. We do a run of pre-production, which is the full band on the floor here, and the drums in the booth. So it's all it's just the same setup as we're tracking a lot of records now, but we're not here to track the final. What we're here to do is establish what's there right now, and then I will then go ahead and dispatch a pile of practice mixes, so everybody will get a mix without their parts, so they can work over, like, it's even the sound of the Pro Tools click, versus their own. They get to hear where all the other parts are clearly, rather than like in the jam space where like so many things can get lost. So I would send the group away with that for a 5 to 6 week, maybe more, maybe less, interim period. And then when they come back, we know, are all the songs the right tempo, everybody's practiced up, and typically we've gotten the right tempos on the pre-production day. So it's nice because we've already built the template. So, and this has given everybody a chance to just like think about, what did I do on guitar, what did I do on drums, what can I do differently, and have the actual, just the solid mixes to practice and get back in the studio and execute quickly. And because when you come to a studio, you're paying somebody like me to get you a great tone, and to certainly give you, depending on my role, like give production advice and, hey, what can we do with this riff? Blah blah blah. Does this riff sound good? But you want to be making as few of those decisions on recording day as possible. You really want to be coming in, knowing exactly what you're doing, liking what you're doing, leaving time for a few happy accidents and surprises, which always happen, and those get to be executed when everything else, the bread and butter is there. So I would say probably the most important thing is pre-production. It's honestly, I feel it's almost more important than the actual recording, because it's where you get to truly try all the different ideas that you might think you want to have. There's no worse thing than somebody just having an epiphany right on recording day, and that's they're realizing, oh, I'm in this far. You can kind of sense the energy that they want to shift gears on a part or on their particular instrument. So I think that that again, I can't say enough about pre-production and how that's something that nobody should circumvent, and it's actually something that I've been pushing even more again in the last few months. This is all circling back to, should you record in a big studio versus in a studio like this, or should you record completely at home? And so let's talk about that for a little bit. home-based recording uh, done by the artists themselves. I would say use your best judgment as to where you feel your engineering skills are at. One good thing is you can always have things edited and mixed by a pro. So if you feel like more comfortable recording by yourself, and that even though you might take some sonic loss, if that like proper energy you need, if that's like the comfort the that you need to kind of be your most creative, at the expense of some of those things I mentioned, go for it. Sometimes you get your hands tied. Sometimes you might decide, okay, well, I'm gonna go back into the studio and into a proper studio. Maybe the guitars didn't come out so good, but I would definitely say you can get away with even a really good recording doing it by yourself, provided you get a professional to mix it. Again, you could try to mix it yourself even. That's cool. But from my experience, if you're kind of new to it, you're probably going to be lacking in a couple of areas, or at least one area, in the beginning at least. And I find, as someone who was in a band and kind of recording themselves, I found myself just eventually recording, and as my last band was fizzling out. And that's because it takes kind of everything from you to learn the craft. And you will notice it's hard to be both. And one thing getting into production that is hard for me is one of the hardest. It's weird because it's easy for me to produce other people's music. It's very difficult for me to produce my own music for a number of reasons. Not having that someone to operate the session and bounce back and forth, and also just the flow of somebody else being there as well, because I have all this stuff available to me, and it can be hard to not get sidetracked. And I think with other people collaborating and potentially somebody else at the console, that goes a long way into, I think, just getting something done and making calls. And so one thing that has been semi-sacrificed for me is making as much music as I would like to personally make, because of, that's the counter side to when you make the jump over to doing production and recording, you kind of have to leave the artist part behind a little bit, and that's difficult. And so I would also say, if you're recording your own group, by all means experiment, get in there, but realize it's going to take a lot of energy, and it might be pulling away from the thing that matters most. If the thing that matters most for you is getting your band off the ground and writing the best songs, and making the band successful, I really think that hiring somebody is the way to go. And I think that if you're just someone who loves music, wants to experiment, doesn't really know where they want to be right now, then yeah, try everything, do everything, see where you fall, see where you fit. You might be someone who's more comfortable in the studio. I know that for me, after a while, I just couldn't see myself touring any longer. I feel like I do like being home for the most part, so I can maintain certain aspects of my lifestyle, and which I find hard to do on the road. So those are some considerations. I know this was sort of a long and roundabout sort of way of, again, discussing, should you go to a big studio? Should you come to, say, something like this where it's, home-based professional? Should you do it yourself? And, I think all that, if I had to summarize those quickly, I think big studio, great sound, great experience, great just, environment, aura, being infused with the energy of great things that have come before it there, at the expense of money, of potentially and most likely feeling kind of rushed. And and if your song isn't great, it's not gonna, there's no magic fairy dust in there that's going to make your song any better. It's the same as if you hire, some AAA mixer to mix your song. If it's not changing the song. And I don't know how many times I've remixed one of my own songs, and I've got the mix to be better. I've got the mix to be far better, and I'm glad I went down those rabbit holes, but it did not make the song any better. So, and then home base, professional, still money, but not as much per day. Typically, I feel like you're going to get more out of people like this, people like myself, just in the sense of it's less sort of clinical of a workflow and an experience. And we're home based, so we're likely to, bend the rules on time and different things like that when we need to. And at the possible expense of, like a little bit of sonic quality. I'm not going to say that, source recorded tones are going to be as good as, wherever. But big studio, but I've worked myself and many others included have worked very hard to get as close as possible, with a great recording chain and miking techniques that support the rooms that we're working in, and great post-production techniques, which again are paramount in getting competitive products out of rooms like this. And then again, finally, to be recording yourselves, I would say, you've got no pressure of money per se, other than maybe you've invested in the gear. But I would, and just having the fun of experimenting and learning the craft, and doing it just in the band's natural habitat, which could be the jam space, basement, whatever. I think this is great. You're probably going to get the least amount of sonic reward from this. But again, with the plus side of that, knowing you could send your tracks to a professional, have them have certain noises removed, have certain things edited, possibly, and then just having a great mix and master done on it, which again is all sort of relying on your source tones at the end of the day. So the better your source tones, as everything compounds, that's what's going to dictate what spits out at the master. But one thing I think it's important for everyone to remember too is, like, a good song is a good song, and I think that as much as this stuff is important, the song is really important. I think one thing you can do that doesn't cost money is spend more time on it. Just spend more time on the song and play it for some people. And there's lots of great AI mastering tools. I'm not a huge, I'm not huge on the AI, but one thing you can do is get a quick master with it, and then go play your demo for some people and see what they think, and try to get some feedback, and then go back in with that feedback and try some different things. It's going to make for a great song. It's a frustrating process, especially when you've heard a song about 5,000 times, but it's all about the listener that's going to hear it for the first time. So guys, thanks for sticking around. If you stuck around this long, this has been Terry from Switzerville Sound Retreat. Have a great day. Stay tuned for the next video.